Are you interested in Agile Coaching and would like to hear more from the real person who has transitioned into Agile Coaching as a job from being a Scrum Master and Scrum Trainer? Well, then I have a very interesting interview for you. Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm Dmitry, and today, as promised, I'm bringing to you an interview with a good friend and a colleague of mine, Eralp, who lives in Belgium, and he has fairly recently transitioned from his career of a very well-established Scrum Trainer and Scrum Master into a full-time Agile Coaching role. So on this interview, I am talking to him a little bit about the particulars of his transition into the Agile Coaching role, and he will just tell us a little bit about how he found it personally. And you will certainly find something interesting, which I hope will augment or perhaps give you a little bit of a bonus piece of information to accompany my very recently, pretty much now, not many weeks ago, released audiobook, Agile Coaching, Where to Start. Please do check it out on audible.com in case you feel like supporting this initiative and deepening your own information and your own kind of experience as an aspiring Agile coach, or perhaps someone who just would like an extra perspective. Please enjoy the interview. With glasses you look okay, without, but with glasses you look so much smarter. I should try glasses. Just for the look.
Okay. Not to show our true face.
I would like to introduce my good friend Eralp. He's an Agile coach from Belgium and someone who has recently successfully transitioned from being a Scrum Master and Scrum Trainer into being a full-time Agile coach. How are you doing, my friend? How's Belgium treating you?
Oh, great. Well, thank you, Dimitri. Thank you for having me here. Belgium is treating me fine, and although the weather is not the weather is not the best here, but nevertheless it's good. And as I said, I did this transition of my own free will from being a trainer, a Scrum trainer mostly, into becoming an Agile coach. Cool.
Okay, so look, maybe I understand that there is a lot probably to tell about the whole experience that you had transitioning. So maybe just give us a bit of a background and a bit of a baseline of what was your activity like? What was I'm not going to say what was your day like, but what were you mostly preoccupied by when you were a trainer, like before the transition? So so that we baseline a little bit of where you were transitioning from.
Okay. So to start with, I was a trainer, project management, and eventually a Scrum trainer, an Agile trainer. What happened there was basically I was learning things from people who have applied them, and eventually revising my trainings in exchanging this information with the candidates, with the participants of the trainings. And of course, I received a lot of questions from the training, some of which I could answer, some of which I couldn't. And then when I couldn't, I made sure that I went back to someone who could know about this, discuss it with them, and then get back to the participants and answer their questions as best as I could, even if the training was already over. So this helped me a lot with the improvement, with the knowledge, to improve my knowledge base. And also I got a lot of feedback from the participants of the trainings about, okay, this is a good answer, or no, this is not satisfactory enough, or things like that. So this helped me a lot to figure out what could be the right thing to do, what couldn't be the right thing to do. And it's helped me build an intuition, actually.
Interesting. So intuition in what way? So intuition in terms of what material people want, or?
Yes, what could be people's reactions? Because in a training situation, they explain you something from their point of view. You don't have the chance to observe it. So they have certain already established acceptable solutions in their minds based on the problem they see. And with that, they're sort of biased. Sometimes they're on the right track, but sometimes bias causes them to think in a rather non-agile way, or non-ideal project management, with a non-ideal project management attitude. So the point here is that as you exchange with the experts and also deliver these points to the candidates, they either change their mind, improve the way they're thinking, along with the structure of the training, of course. So this was used to be started with Prince 2. Prince 2 has a really nice process structure, which is very close to DSDM as well. Probably you would know that. Yeah, indeed. And so if you follow that process, you're more or less safe, actually, with some common sense, with intuition, insight, and with some careful thinking. You're actually pretty safe if you follow the process. And if you try not to leave out anything out. Same goes for the Scrum. On the team level, you have a process that you need to apply, and that process actually enables you to not only deliver the product, but enables you to build an agile mindset. So the idea of those rituals is actually building the mindset instead of making it a strict habit without knowing why you're doing it. So the idea is, of course, in every case, you try to make people see the process as the benefits of the process and how it can help them find a solution to their problems. With the help of the experts that I had the chance to talk to, it helps, and they see the benefit of the process, and it helps me to learn that, okay, in such a situation, this process can actually be helpful if you approach it that way, in a particular way. Same goes for Scrum, same goes for Prince 2. It doesn't matter. It's a process. You need to apply it. After all, if the process is just a tool. So the idea is to find a solution, implement, get rid of the problem by using the aspects of the tool. If the tool is useless for you, then you don't use the tool at all.
Exactly. Use the right tools for the right job, right?
Absolutely. Use the right tools for the right job. Because especially in Prince 2, this happens. With Scrum as well, I've seen a few situations where the processes, where the rituals were kind of doing as an overkill. But the idea for that is to ensure that you're delivering something in the end, not implementing Prince 2 or Scrum in the exact right way. That's not the idea. The idea is to help these processes understand your problems and fix them so that you can actually deliver on time and on budget, or any kind of criteria that you want to have. So training and all these exchanges actually helped me build this intuition based on the processes that I was thinking about. How the process can actually help, what sort of problems a process can actually address, and what sort of problems it cannot address. For example, anything specifically product related, a process cannot address. However, how you approach in defining and designing that product is a process, and yes, it can help at that point. And so it depends on what sort of problems they're looking for, they're facing, and help them understand them, and plus see if it could be solved by the processes that I try to teach them. So in the end, to wrap up, that helped me.
Very well-rounded answer, yes.
Yeah.
And kind of steering you a little bit towards now, like again, if you would like to outline kind of maybe the main milestones of your journey of transition from the training, both attitude and mechanics and everything else that you've done, towards the coaching part. How was that for you? Which moments, I suppose, stuck with you and maybe stand out to you as worthy of mention as far as the milestones of the process? What shifts in your own approach and attitude you had to make in order to properly better embrace the new kind of this angle, the coaching angle, as opposed to training angle?
Okay, very good question. Actually, the biggest milestone that I had, and I'm still having it, because apparently this is a big topic, is the people part.
Yeah.
That's what makes the difference. Because in a training situation, people, the participants, are isolated from their own natural habitat, if I may say so. For that reason, they can talk more freely. You're a trainer, you're outside the organization, their organization, they're outside their organization. They can talk much freely, much comfortably, and they can discuss it. However, in the organization itself, even if you're talking one-to-one, even if you ensure or give them a sense of feeling that it's whatever they say is secure, they are never comfortable. So you're always reliable on pure observation. That is essential, because then the way people act versus the way people speak sometimes conflicts. And if you see the difference, then you can actually see what they actually feel. And from there on, comes the coaching part, actually, where you have to interact with the people and try to address their emotions, their feelings, and try to find a solution to a problem as well. Then comes the balancing act on a coach's position, at least based on my observation, where you balance those feelings with common sense and address those feelings with common sense as well, so that they can help you find a solution to the problem that they are facing.
That's a very nice way to summarize this, because for example, I express myself similarly, and then say in the Agile Coaching book as well, what I'm trying to highlight, like what you interestingly enough highlighting that I maybe didn't emphasize enough, is the fact that people are more truthful to a trainer up front. And the coach who has the luxury of time and who will be stuck with them for a longer time, it's on them to open slowly those honesty gates and maybe establish personal relationships and get used to this, as opposed to a trainer who on one hand is hindered by not having the luxury of that time, right?
Yeah.
You have them only for a little time with you. But at the same time, they see you like a taxi driver, like someone who you can tell your secrets to, and what your manager said and whatever, because you are not there all the time. I think this is a brilliant thing.
Yeah, thank you. Well, in fact, that's what I noticed. And in fact, that makes life as a coach slightly more difficult on that side. Because as you said, people open up really slowly when you're there. So you have to approach in a totally different way to help them trust you, to help them be even slightly more transparent with you. And you have to do the same in return. Of course, you have to trust them and be transparent with them. I mean, this is not a one-way thing. This never happens like that. So in the end, trying to coach someone is actually reflecting on you coaching yourself as well to do the right thing properly. Because
you expect them to embrace the growth mindset, but if you do not display it yourself, then you are dead in the water.
Absolutely, it doesn't work then after all if you don't show the same mindset. So, and of course, this is recently I'm trying to read a few bits and pieces about what agile leadership is, what leadership is in general. But from what I see, I've seen some documents I've listened to some podcasts, some documents as well from the 1950s, especially military guys writing what leadership means from a military perspective and what leadership means from a modern perspective, that you have an agile leadership or true leader. There are many articles about these things. And even those, they're exactly the same thing. They talk about exactly the same thing. So a leader actually always reflects what he or she says, and or rather, there's a nice word for it: walk the walk and talk the talk. I think that's the way of putting it.
That's well, yes.
Yes, that's actually the true attribute of a leader. And so a coach is somewhat a leader as well, at least in a particular context. It's he or she is a leader. So knowing that helps a lot too. I mean, that you're a leader and you have to act like a leader at that point.
That is a good point. And I've discovered similar kind of things where I was hit by, so in my for example transition, like there is a different kind of story to that, of course, but I also experienced that just general empathy and just ability to connect with people. And to some of us it comes easier because we are just those type of people. We connect with people easier, you know. For some people need to establish an adaptive behavior of sorts and need to consciously, if they're choosing to transition towards agile coaching as opposed to say training or as opposed to delivery roles, because with a coach you do become a little bit of a bit of that local leader and a bit of center of gravity. People need to come to you. People need to want to open up to you. Until then, you need time. You need a lot of, like, basically, you can't push people to the water, right? You need to come them to have a drink, you know.
Absolutely.
Thing as the story about the horse goes. I couldn't come up with a better analogy. But I'm sorry. It's not for everyone watching. This is not a scripted interview, guys.
Yeah, totally unscripted.
Very unscripted. Any other thoughts, Errol? Because this is great. So these are insightful, I think, healthy type of things for people who are exploring this journey. It's hard to pinpoint the exact audience, I suppose, for this episode and for this content. But I always assume that it's people who come to the channel to learn more about, say, coaching, training, those kind of things. And at the same time, just hear perspectives of the real people who are in the trench, so to speak, who are going through this transformation. Maybe if you could think of, maybe, I'm not going to ask for an advice, for a well-formed advice, but maybe something that you wish you knew before the transition started for you, or maybe something that could have made it better, easier for you, perhaps, the whole transition. Maybe something on the behavioral side, maybe something on the knowledge side. What do you think was a gaping hole for you if you felt one? Maybe not. Maybe you were lucky and you didn't.
Okay, well, it's a hole, but it's not a big gaping hole. Yeah. But overall, I always consider myself an introvert. I'm actually an ideal introvert. I like human interaction, but I get my energy on my own. So I build energy, and when I'm alone,
I'm exactly the same.
Yeah, cool. So you understand me then, definitely.
I do.
So on that end, I enjoy the interactions, but somehow some, quick conversational exchange. I cannot do it. You see what I mean? So there's some witty conversational exchanges or some quick thinking about what could be done next. I mean, what could be said next to ease someone's worries, for example. Some people can do that. My wife can do that. She's great at it. She's very extrovert, extremely extrovert. But I'm very introvert, so I'm not very good at it. I'm a bit on the shy side, if you will, to have this quick thinking, interactive approach. So it would have been great if I knew about this upfront. I could have done a bit more work on myself to improve that part of myself, so that I could get better at helping people, doing a bit more empathy. But I can do the empathy, but the way I react is not quick enough to help.
Empathy is slightly different. Empathy you have, but what you're saying is very, very interesting and very honest as well, which I'm sure people would appreciate. I do certainly, but we're friends, so we know each other. But what you're talking about is development of an adaptive behavior. So what you as a coach, and I as a coach, what we both need is, if you're even an introvert or whatever, just because we are such a people-facing figure, we're supposed to be always revolving with people and supposed to be having all these nice social little remarks and stuff. We cannot be just a glum introvert. We simply cannot be. So there are certain, there is basically, there is an overall suitability for the role, I suppose, right? But at the same time, there is that layer of adaptive behavior that the person could consciously try and develop. You're totally right.
Yes, and that's exactly what I'm doing on that level, but trying to do on that level. Adapt myself so that I can become a bit more reactive on the empathy that I receive. That I observe, or that I feel, whatever you call it.
Exactly. All of that.
So,
all of the above.
All of that at once, bro. Yeah.
All of the above.
So this is I think the biggest challenge. My biggest challenge. Although it's not a big gaping hole, but nevertheless, I feel that as a whole, because in the end, I come up with an answer, but not right away, but rather half an hour later, after I give some thought about it, after I think half an hour on it, then I go back to the person and say, yeah, but this is something that we could have done. Oh, yeah, she or he says, oh yeah, of course, yeah, why didn't I think of that? Okay, cool, let's try that one. But then I need that thinking time. I always need that thinking time. It's not bad, it just takes time. That's it.
No, it's just, I think it is your individual and then your coaching style, and people get used to it as well. So people are also receptive to their coach. So I found that in some places where the coach is actually wanted, which is a big if as well, right? And it's not a given. Like, people should not assume that they'll be most welcome everywhere. But in some of those places, people become very protective of their coach. They become very receptive to the way I work or you work, They become very receptive to your way of that becomes obvious after you have been through different transformations, different teams. You've seen complex ones, you've seen good ones, high-performing ones, completely lagging ones. But this is part of the journey which I I personally quite enjoyed, and I think you have
Indeed.
a good fun with as well.
Oh yeah, great fun with it too. So it's because it always provides some kind of a challenge that you need that I
Exactly.
need to think about, which is something that I like anyway.
That's right.
So it's cool. Maybe I can add another thing, another observation that I made. It
Please.
just came to me when you're talking about
Please. Yeah.
it. I realized that in my last mission, I actually started working as some kind of an agile project manager. Someone like in the DSTM, the head of the snowman. Inside, there's this project manager figure. So I'm there as that person, plus a bit of also on the coaching side. But the coaching is rather less emphasized in the beginning, and the project management is more emphasized relatively. There I realized that what they actually need is actually coaching, because they have enough people. Actually, they don't need an additional project manager on top of them.
Yeah.
In terms when it comes to management,
there is enough control. Yeah.
And there's enough control. And those people, however, also they have their teams. They need a bit more agile intuition, or a bit more maybe startup intuition, in order to help the teams become slightly more productive and self-reliant and cross-functional in all agile terms. So, however, for the overall management, I had to prove myself first as a project manager so that I could get away with coaching the others.
Right.
You see what I mean? So if I said, no, guys, you don't need a project manager. You need more an agile coach. They would say, no, we need a project manager. We don't need a coach. They already know what they need to do.
Yeah.
But then they would refuse. They would refuse me. But as I accepted the fact that, okay, project management is fine. I can do it. But I will also coach the others. Yeah, I do it only 10% of the time. Okay, I'll do it 10% of the time. No problem. But then eventually you realize that, as you said, there's enough control. Only those guys need a slight improvement. Maybe not slight, but they need some improvement in the way they handle things. And you coach them, and the management is taken care of automatically along the way. And then everybody's happy that you actually took 90% of your time to coach them instead of doing 10% management, instead of doing 90% management.
This again talks about, I think you're bringing up also the point of how important it is to, as an agilist in general, not specifically as a coach, not specifically as a manager, but as an agile practitioner kind of who wants to be competitive on the market, how important it is to be receptive for the signals, receptive to the signals that you're receiving from the outside, So you need to observe and you need to, there is a certain fluidity. There is a certain fluidity in the coaching efforts that you need to apply where you know that the patient doesn't know that you need a certain thing. It is up to you to shift gears and to change what method, what practice, just approach, So some people want to be left alone and influenced indirectly. Some people want to be, so that's a cool, very insightful story too. Yeah. Great.
That's one of my biggest observations as well. And then I had some exchanges with other fellow coaches or Scrum Masters even, when they say that, when they're making a change, if they don't give it a name, it's easier to implement that change, adaptive, the behavioral change. For example, they're implementing dailies, but they don't call that it's Agile or it's Scrum or anything. They just say that, okay, guys, if you meet every day in the morning, just briefly, and try to figure out what's going on, then it will be a great addition to the work we do. It can be helpful. But they don't call them daily scrums. They don't call them the 3 questions. They just call them that, okay, guys, what are you working on today? You're working on this. And what's the situation? It's that. Oh, great. Do you have any problems with it? No, it's fine. Okay, let's move on. What do you think? They ask the next one and so on. So they don't give it a name. They don't do anything. And in the end, the organization adapts the whole thing. They're very happy about it. And when somebody else asks them, they say, oh, no, we are not agile. But they're actually applying everything that needs to be applied, to call themselves agile. But they're teams, but they don't call it that way because they don't like the word agile.
Yeah. It's that's an interesting. Well, it's avoidance, isn't it? It's again, but these are just ticks, guys. This is just Errol is sharing here some tricks of the trade, some stuff as well. Treat it as a bonus. But this is true. You don't. But you know what? I think
I think even I wouldn't think that Scrum Guide, but I think a lot of blogs and a lot of kind of similar practitioners to you and I, everyone kind of is leaning towards the fact that you should not be too attached to the terms.
Yeah.
If you're not too attached to the terms, right? Then I think it's much easier for you to, I suppose, implement this change and introduce a certain thing without experiencing necessarily a pushback from some people who have been burnt on Agile before or whatever. They think, oh, we tried Agile, it didn't work, kind of things. That's cool. Listen, I want to just thank you again for donating your time. Like, it's always a pleasure just to talk to you casually, but at the same time, I think it would be interesting for the guys on the channel, kind of the ones who are supporting us and sticking around, to hear from a real person, another person who is not just me, because, they probably see just me. So yeah, man, thank you very much, and we'll be talking soon enough again. Hopefully, we probably will do it again.
Well, thanks a lot, Dimitri. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Awesome, thanks, man.
I hope you enjoyed this, guys. I really hope you did. And in case you would like some more of this kind of content, in case you have some questions for me or for Ralph, please do not hesitate to leave them down in the comment section down below. The link to the audiobook that I mentioned, Agile Coaching Where to Start, is in the description of this video. Please check it out as well and subscribe to the channel to show your support. And I will talk to you next time.